MLS playoffs. There's no better time of year. And for the first time in 7 years, we won't see Seattle or Portland in MLS Cup because both of them didn't qualify. So I don't know about you, but I'm ready to crown a new Western Conference champion. Playoffs start this weekend, and we now know all of the matchups for the first round. And in this video, I'll preview all 6 games in round 1, as well as fill out my playoff bracket. Starting out in the West in order of seeding, we have LAFC, Austin, Dallas, the Galaxy, Nashville, and Real Salt Lake, with LAFC getting a bye to the conference semifinals due to their first place finish on the year. Which leaves us to start with what I think is going to be the biggest matchup of this first round, LA Galaxy at home against Nashville SC. Not only is this a big matchup because I think it's the most competitive, with each team finishing the regular season on 50 points, but this is only the second time the Galaxy have been in the playoffs since 2017. And the first time they've been in the playoffs since Nashville has been in the league. And while the Galaxy have been fighting for a postseason berth, Nashville's made the playoffs all 3 years they've been around. For the Galaxy, playoffs were not always a guarantee. They'd pick up some solid results and then drop some big games. And the story for the Galaxy throughout the whole year was them underperforming. Key DP acquisitions just haven't performed like they probably should have, with Kevin Cabral and Douglas Costa being invisible throughout the whole year. But the guys that did show up proved to be vital, with Chicharito with 4 goals in his last 4 games, and the signing that changed the hope for this team, Ricky Puig, who's managed 8 goal contributions in his only 10 matches. This underperformance could be an issue at such a crucial point in the season, but it does balance out when you consider Nashville's year has been very similar. It wasn't until about halfway through the season where Nashville could rely on good performances week in and week out, and a large factor of those victories came directly from the foot of Hany Mukhtar. Mukhtar has arguably put this team on his back at some points in this year, posting up 5 separate multi-goal performances and ending the year with the Golden Boot. I don't think it's too far out there to say that if Hany isn't showing up for this match, then Nashville could find themselves dead in the water. On the scoring front for Nashville, under Mukhtar's 23 goals is Teal Bunbury, who's only played about half of the games this year and has 5 goals. For this game, I'm expecting a dogfight. It really could go either way, but because I think Hany Mukhtar's peak performance tops what the stars on the Galaxy will do, I'm leaning towards Nashville here with a score of 2-1. The next matchup includes the return to the playoffs for another side that's been yearning for the postseason, and FC Dallas as they host Minnesota United. This is a matchup we saw recently, and in that one, FC Dallas absolutely mopped the floor with a Minnesota side that was in a really great run of form. And that game just a few months ago started the dramatic cliff dive of Minnesota. There was a point in the year where Minnesota was hands down the scariest team in the West, and they picked up 8 wins in 10 matches and put up 27 goals in that span. But then all of a sudden they went on a 6-game winless run that only ended in their decision day win over Vancouver. In the playoffs, sometimes a team's level doesn't really matter, and it's all about momentum. And for this side, there is none. A season-ending injury for center back Debasi and the in and outs of Reynoso due to small injuries and suspensions hasn't helped the Loons at all. And even with Reynoso on the pitch, the attack appears to be very one-dimensional, with Minnesota not really having a second dangerous attacking forward. For Dallas, they're coming into this game with confidence as they rode out a successful regular season, securing a home playoff game. And for them, they've made their home games count this year, only losing 3 times at Toyota Stadium. Dallas is a team that handles the majority of their games professionally. They don't usually score a ton, but enough, as they boast the best backline out of the West with only 37 goals conceded this year. Threats up top include MLS's 22/22 winner, Jesus Ferreira, who's the highest scoring American in MLS since 2018 with 18 goals. Along with that, another American, Paul Arriola, has added 17 goal contributions to the year. Because at this moment, I believe Dallas is more organized throughout their whole team, with each player understanding their role. I think especially at home, they'll be able to take out Adrian Heath's side. For this match, I'm going to go with Dallas in a 2-0 game. And for the final Western Conference matchup, we're looking at Real Salt Lake's visit to Austin. Now, anyone who's watched the league this year, this seems to be the most straightforward matchup. The second seed, who clinched their spot weeks ago against the 7th seed who just crossed the line on the final day. One squad with an array of DP talent, one of which in contention for the MVP award, versus another squad with, from what I can tell, one DP on their books and a host of injuries that have plagued the squad this year. It seems simple, but when you're talking about RSL, it never is. This team defies odds, and we saw that throughout this year, but also in last year's playoffs, where they went from a 7th seed castaway to the conference semifinal. I'm going to say all of this knowing there's a chance it'll come back and bite me. RSL does not have a team that should be able to compete in this game. With Bobby Wood out and their real star, Damir Kreilach, out as well, there isn't enough threats to make this team favorites. But they are a well-oiled machine under Pablo Mastroeni. They know how to work together, and they know how to bring it to teams that are better than them. They work the ball around very efficiently, and they make the most out of their chances. And it's up to Austin to not get fooled by their underdog effect. Austin was the biggest surprise in the regular season. After struggling in both defense and offense last year, they became a team scoring for fun, notching up the 3rd most goals on the year with 65. Sebastian Driussi picked up 22 goals and became a real star for this Austin side, and with Driussi on the field, there's a good chance he'll do something. I mentioned momentum earlier in the video, and if there's a spot that RSL can take advantage of, it's this. Since Austin's big 4-1 victory over LAFC, they've only won 1 of their last 7 games, and with 3 of those matches being shutouts for the Austin attack, there are questions in this side that weren't there 2 months ago. RSL has a window to surprise this squad, but with a sold-out Q2 stadium, I can't see it. Austin FC will win this game 3-1. On to the East in order of seeding, we have Philadelphia, Montreal, NYCFC, New York Red Bulls, Cincinnati, and Orlando City, with Philadelphia earning the bye into the conference semis. First matchup on deck then is the New York Red Bulls versus FC Cincinnati. Like in the West, the first one we're covering is probably the biggest one in round 1 because we have 2 teams that love to attack and push numbers up the pitch. FC Cincinnati found themselves in their first ever postseason after 3 really tough years, but all the growth in this season started last year. The attacking trio of Brenner, Vasquez, and Acosta absolutely skyrocketed from what we saw in 2021. FC Cincinnati is the only team to have 2 goal scorers with 18 or more goals, and that's coming from the 2 guys up top. We've seen about every goal possible from Vasquez throughout the year, from tap-ins to solo runs to headers, and Brenner's been the same. Then when you add in the league's assist leader, well, you're setting yourself up pretty well in the attack. But the defense is where the worry comes in. Cincy will gladly push forward in the hopes for a few goals, even if that means leaving defenders stranded. And we've seen that multiple times, and maybe most prominently in their 3-2 loss to the Chicago Fire 2 weeks ago. I'm expecting big things from Cincy this postseason, but if there is a team I think they wouldn't have wanted to come across, the Red Bulls are definitely up there. The Red Bulls are all about transitional play. Press the ball, win it quick, and get up the field. An effective strategy against sides who leave their defensive players on an island. Even though the Red Bulls attack is one-sided, with Lewis Morgan on 14 goals and the next closest being Patrick Klimala on 5, they still got that attacking threat about them. This match will be played at Red Bull Arena, which is great in theory, but in reality, the Red Bulls have been really poor at home and actually have a better away record than their home record of 6-6-5. A lot of people are expecting goals galore in this match, and once it's the playoffs, I can see it too. I'm taking Cincinnati for an away win with a score of 2-2 and penalties to follow. The second match in the East is the defending champions NYCFC at home against Inter Miami, but technically not at home. We're looking at this matchup being played at either Red Bull Arena or Citi Field, both of which take away from the really strong home field advantage we see this side have when they play at Yankee Stadium. For this match, I think it could really go either way because both sides have experienced a lot of different emotions and runs of form throughout the final stanza of the regular season. For NYCFC, it seems like they've been figuring out how to function without Tati Castellanos in the squad and Nick Cushing's on the sideline. It's been a bit of a carousel in the attack, experimenting with Talas Magno and Hebert at the 9, but with Magno exiting their decision day matchup with an injury, there are questions on if he will be available for this game, which would be a big blow considering he leads this squad in assists and is third on goals. Along with that, City is also struggling with injuries in the midfield, with Keaton Parks not at full strength yet and Alfredo Morales out with an injury. This is a beaten down City side, but they still have the magic of Maxi Morales, the set piece prowess of Alexander Collins, and the goal stopping ability of Sean Johnson. The final of that 3, necessary if they want to stop the in-form Higuain, who scored 7 goals in his last 6 appearances. there is no doubt this Miami side is topsy-turvy because at one point they're stomping Orlando 4-1, and the next week they're falling flat versus Montreal at home. But I do think this Miami side has something different about them than we've seen in the past. The mid-season acquisition of Pozuelo has unleashed this Miami attack, who's found the net 12 times in their last 6 games. Along with that, an resurgence of Drake Callender has saved this team quite a few times. Although I don't think NYCFC will go far in the playoffs after this match, I do think they'll find what it takes to knock out Miami and send Higuain into retirement, with a tight scoreline of 3-2. And for the last round 1 matchup, it's the 2nd seed Montreal against 7th seed Orlando. Montreal are heading into the playoffs after their best ever season, achieving 20 wins on the year and 65 points, fighting for that final seed spot until the final day of the regular season. Wilfried Nancy, who's my coach of the year, has done incredible things with this squad since taking over last season. With players coming in and out of the lineup through injury, Nancy was able to establish a set game plan and stay consistent throughout the whole season. Unlike other teams like Philly, LAFC, and Austin, Montreal never really struggled for a large spell of games. Whether it was Kyoto, Mihalovic, or the 38-year-old Kai Kamara, this team found a way to produce in almost every single game. On the other side, Orlando City, well, they're the opposite of what Montreal achieved, being one of the most inconsistent teams we saw this season. This team was once fighting in the home playoff spots, but after multiple poor runs of form, we saw them slip further and further down the table. Coming into the playoffs, they've racked up 4 losses in their final 6 games. But this side does have a wealth of experience in important games. Once again, these are your Open Cup champions who went 6 knockout games in a row with a win. Also, they've been in the playoffs the last 2 years, securing some really emotional victories, as well as making it to the final of the MLS's back tournament. On top of that, they just played a real playoff type game on decision day where they needed a win to qualify for the playoffs. This team has the experience in matches that they need a victory from, and although Nancy's Montreal has been consistent, they maybe haven't felt the pressure that they'll feel this weekend. But even though I'm talking up Orlando here, I want Montreal to continue their great season, and I think they're going to move on in the playoffs with a 2-0 win. So there's my picks for round 1, and if I had to make a call for the bracket right now, here's what I'll say. In the West, I think LAFC will defeat Nashville, and Dallas will take out Austin in a really heated game in Texas. Then, for a shocker, I think we'll see Dallas defeat an LAFC side to book their place in the final. On the other side, I'll take Philadelphia over Cincinnati and Montreal over NYCFC, which will end up in Philadelphia coming out of the East to face FC Dallas at Subaru Park, where the Union will lift the MLS Cup for the first time in their history. But until then, we'll see how it actually shakes out. I'll see you next week for the conference semis. I hope you enjoy the games.